Welcome to Tabula Rasa, bitches.
All right, hello.
Hello.
My name is Allie.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome to episode 3 of Tabula Rasa, bitches. We're so glad you are here.
In Tabula Rasa, bitches, you'll listen as two decades-long friends jump back into the world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and relive the show that brought them close together and taught them so many of the values they still cherish today. And side note for our friends, we will be discussing this episode's spoilers and all. If you haven't watched and don't want to hear spoilers, hit the pause button, go do your watching, and come on back. We can't wait for you to rejoin us.
Yes, exactly. And each episode of Tabula Rasa, bitches, will dive into an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and discuss the lessons that can be learned from our favorite Sunnydale warriors and the supernatural creatures they use their talents and friendship to overcome. Today we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 3, Witch. Nicholas, would you like to give us a summary?
I would be thrilled to give you a summary. So, this summary is shamelessly stolen from our friends over at Buffyverse Wiki because they are brilliant and wrote a brilliant summary, and I would like to borrow it. So, when students start dropping out of cheerleading tryouts by spontaneously combusting, going blind, and losing the power of speech, Buffy and her posse suspect a powerful witch is in their midst. Buffy herself soon becomes the target of a deadly spell as they discover the witch's true identity. Meanwhile, Xander finally musters up the nerve to ask Buffy out on a date, but in the throes of a witch's spell, Buffy's response isn't exactly as he'd hoped.
That is a fantastic summary. Although, does he ask her out, or does he ridiculously beat around the bush? And, he did basically what I did in high school, which was like, I'm just gonna shower them with attention and hopefully they'll understand what I'm talking about.
A classic mistake
it's
from
a
our
high school move.
Selves.
It is 100% accurate high schooler move. Is it effective? No. But is it true to the character? Absolutely. So I will say, just to start off, this is one of my all-time favorite Buffy episodes.
Really? I didn't know that.
It is. I don't even know. I'm not even sure I could put my finger on it. It's just, there's something so classic about it. And it's a little bit different because it's a witch instead of a vampire. That's, the main bad for the episode. And it's just got some classic moments. And they're really starting to gel as a team. I don't know. There's just something I really love about it.
It is definitely, I think it's the first time we see a non-vampire baddie, so it's exciting in that sense.
Yeah. And I mean, it's in the context of things, it's only episode 3, so that is pretty early to introduce other things. But this is it seems like the first non-vampire thing that Buffy has fought.
It's cool that it takes place mainly at school, too. See the worlds kind of. I mean, in the first episode we saw that because the dude got killed at school or whatever. But this is, the supernatural forces are affecting the other students, which is neat.
Yeah, and it is all going down at school, whereas like the guy was killed after school, and the vampires were at the Bronze, or so they were like talking about stuff, but the action and fighting and stuff was happening outside of school. Whereas, the hands on fire happens in the middle of the school gym in front of everybody. So pretty quickly becoming a little difficult for the student body to ignore. Although, obviously, we'll see that they do for the most part, because what else are you going to do?
I will say I loved right at the start of the episode, I was cheering for Buffy as she was sharing that she was going to be a cheerleader. Oh, I didn't even play that. That was good, Nick. I love how unapologetic she is about trying for the cheerleading squad. Giles is like, no, you can't. No. But she says, and you'll stop me how?
You'll be stopping me how? Yes, I do. And I do love that moment. And I do love the bait and switch of like, we start just hearing Giles like submitting yourself to this cult. And then Buffy just like, what? You don't like the color? I love that. And it is a little sad. I think this whole episode and this whole her effort to join the cheerleading squad is sort of her last ditch effort to hold on to her old life. because cheerleading was a big part of her school last time. We'll hear later her mom say, the trouble started just after you stopped cheerleading, so I'm glad you're taking it up again. So it's really just her last grip on trying to be normal. And of course, her job as Slayer getting in the way and making that impossible.
Of course, somebody spontaneously combusts right as she's trying to engage with it for the first time.
Right.
I have to say, since you noted it in a previous episode, Allie, I've been paying more attention to people's clothes, and I want that button down that Xander is wearing. Xander, you were right. Xander has some nice style.
He has some fun stuff. Yeah.
And I don't know if the fact that 90s clothing is resonating with, I don't know quite what that means, but I'm not going to think too much about it. And I'm just going to say,
the 90s
like
are back. You're allowed to like it. It's cool.
Great.
Speaking of clothing, I think it's really funny that, so they're at the cheer tryouts and Willow says something like, oh, you were pretending that seeing scantily clad women in revealing postures was somehow a reflection of school spirit or something like that. And you're looking around and it's like, scantily clad, really? It's like biker shorts and sports bras. Yeah. It's really funny that that's what passed for scantily clad. It's like, whoa, look at all these belly buttons. Oh, clutching my pearls.
Yeah.
It doesn't even register in today's modern context of like scantily clad.
Yeah, this is not scandalous right now. I wanted your feedback, Allie, as a former high school cheerleader yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a perspective on the routines that we see in this episode.
Well, as a matter of fact, my very next comment in my notes is her dance moves don't match the music. When Amber, who they're talking about, like, what does she think she is, a Laker girl? And she turned them down. Like, her dance moves don't match the music. So that was frustrating. I mean, yes, she's
not impressed.
She's clearly very talented and like, her high kicks and she's got rhythm and this could totally be one of those production things where they asked her to put together a few moves and then they put music together later or something like that. It could totally be one of those things. But watching it, I was definitely like, okay. I will say, I do love their classic sort of old-fashioned cheer uniforms, the sweater with the skirt. I think it's so classy. It's so cute. Obviously very different than a lot of the cheer uniforms we see today. Definitely more modest. Again, talking about old standards of what scantily clad was. But I thought the routines were good, especially the ones we see later with the palms and stuff. I thought those were very cute and very cheer. I mean, obviously, the Sunnydale cheerleaders are not going to, win any competitions. Their stunting is very minimal, but, still good. And they could definitely yell and they were engaged with the crowd. So I thought that was all really good. My next note, though, when Amber's hands light on fire, does no one know stop, drop, and roll?
Yeah.
I see this all the time in movies and TV. And for us growing up, it was in like infomercials or whatever. I feel like stop, drop, and roll was smashed in our faces and I never see it used. Like, I don't understand.
I wrote that I am so glad that Buffy was there because she is the only one moving with any sort of haste.
Yep. Everyone else froze. And that is a real thing in times of trauma or scary stuff. Like freezing is a thing. My dad saved one of my brother's friends' lives when he was choking on some pasta, being a stupid teenage boy, getting a whole mouthful and like not really chewing. And a room full of Boy Scouts, several of them Eagle Scouts, totally froze.
Boy Scouts, yeah. Presumably, yeah.
So yeah, exactly. Presumably like trained in first aid and like that kind of thing. They all should theoretically know the Heimlich maneuver. And my dad had to rush in and perform the Heimlich maneuver.
Bruce Press, good job.
I know, he's a hero. Work. He's a hero. Wouldn't that would have been a traumatic childhood thing. Seeing your friend choked to death in your living room.
Choked to death on pasta too. I wrote that in addition to being glad because Buffy is moving with a lot of haste, there's right at the end, she is hugging Amber saying, it's okay, everything's going to be okay. And I just need Buffy in my day-to-day life. just for that.
Just
There
for
are
that.
So many times a day. Yeah. Yeah. Where I'm making a big deal about something. And if she could just say,
Just rub my
"It's okay."
shoulder.
Right.
It's okay. Or envelop me with a big blanket like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take a big blanket too. Yeah. That sounds good. I could always use a big blanket.
I love that. I would like that.
I have a note here. I'm sorry to, I think you were about to say something, but I have to interrupt with this because this is good. I am going to, dear listeners, be on the lookout for our social media because I'm going to post a screenshot. Speaking of Allie in her cheerleader days, there was one time, I don't know the context for this. I don't remember the context now. Do you remember that time you wrote on my Facebook wall, Allie?
Yes, I do. And I cringe every time it comes up in my Facebook rewind thing, whatever. Or it used to come up in my what was that app that I deleted because I had an ex? Time Hop. That's what it was. I deleted it because I broke up with my ex and I was like, I don't need to be reminded of this BS Time Hop. Thank you very much.
I had Time Hop. I checked it religiously every day for 2 years. 2 years. And it had the counter. And then it messed up. I did not miss a day, but it said that I missed a day and it recounted my count all the way back to 1. And I hit them up on Twitter and they didn't fix it. So I then deleted it.
In protest. So, all right. So go ahead. Read the quote. What did I write on your wall?
So I tried to find it so I could do justice to the exact phrasing. It had the word bitch in it. And I've texted you a picture of it before. And I went back into our text messages and I searched for bitch. And I scrolled through years of text, Allie. Do you know how often?
Well, if you sent me a screenshot of it, it wouldn't show up in your search of words. You would have to look at our pictures, our shared media.
I sent it to you at one point just with the caption, bitch.
Oh, okay.
And then I tried to go through just our pictures too, Allie. Do you know how many pictures we send each other back and forth?
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean, that happens when you're best friends. Let me see. I'm looking through mine now, seeing if I can find a screenshot of my dog is not happy with me. Sorry, bitch. Speaking of bitches.
Sammy is here too.
Of course, I find one of my favorite pictures. It's these two like Shakespeare-looking dudes. So I have this one picture that I constantly keep on my phone because it never ceases to amuse me. So it's one guy, and he's like, "What if the Earth orbits the sun?" And this other guy's like, "What if your wife orbits my dick?" And just like every time I see that fucking picture, it amuses me every single time. Okay, well, the quote, it was something like,
I'm a cheerleader. I look down on people like you now.
Yes, exactly. I assume it was in response to something sassy you said. I guarantee it was not unsolicited.
Well, I was going to say, I bet I deserved it. And then I bet I deceptively edited out the context for it when I reminded you of it. But that's just who we are. I don't know. I'll find it.
It's especially funny because I was a cheerleader for a year. And what did I do after cheerleading? Marching band. I was the leader of the geeks. So clearly I did not have the social ranking to make such a comment. And of course, if you did not know our history, you'd be like, who talks to other people like that? You'd be horrified. But for us, it's hysterical.
Oh, yeah. And completely in line with how we communicate. Cussing at each other is a love language.
It's a love language for sure. Okay. My dog is getting belligerent. So let me go let her out before she like pees on my rug in protest. One sec.
Oh, yeah. We can't have that.
Okay. And I'm back.
Okay. Where were we? I will make this comment every episode. The Buffy theme song is timeless and incredible.
It's lit. It's excellent. It will never get old. So my next thing is, so they're gathered in the library, the Scooby Gang, discussing what's going on. And I love Giles getting so excited about the prospect of a witch or something non-vampire-y. And they all look at him. And he goes, "Pardon me for finding the glass half full."
Yeah. That's the thrill of living on the Hellmouth.
Right.
There's a veritable cornucopia of fiends and devils and ghouls to engage. Good for you, Giles.
Exactly. Yeah, enjoy your job. You have to find enjoyment where you can. That scene is chock full of excellent quotes. It's another one of my favorite Xander lines. I laugh in the face of danger. Then I hide until it goes away.
I like Willow's coining them as the Slayerettes.
Yes,
Iconic.
it's very classic. And we move into the next scene with Buffy getting home. She's talking with Joyce. I definitely did not get her jeepers at the fertility statue when I was young. I don't maybe I thought it was boobs or assumed it was boobs or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah. Now I'm like, oh no, that's a penis. That's a giant, It's a giant penis.
Yeah, that's a dong. Yeah, just a big old dong. I don't like this scene. I like that we revisit it, that Joyce revisits the mistakes she makes in it.
I love that. I have a note about that later. Yeah.
But as I was watching, taking notes, and kind of, I guess, forgot that we do revisit it later. I was just feeling like, man, this theme of parents trying to live out their glory days through their
parental
kids.
pressure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And great quotes of, your platitudes are good for all occasions. And I'm not in trouble. No, not yet. And then she's like, no, that's not what I meant. And as a woman in her late 20s, contemplating, I can't actually put a time frame on it, but, contemplating having kids. Now I'm just like so on the parent side, because like I can't even imagine trying to deal with some of these situations. So I'm like, I'm sure she was trying the best she could. I'm sure she was trying to find the best wording. But I also totally see Buffy's side of like, I don't know what else I can do. I'm not in trouble. And like, you don't even know all the stuff that I have to deal with. I'm sorry if my history test is not top of my list of priorities.
I think this is definitely one of those where, as I've gotten older and watched it, I'm still not thrilled with how she engaged here, but I more see, like, I do relate more to having a million things, juggling a million things, trying to maintain a house and this new job, and it's the first big project at your work, and
Yeah, well, and I can that whole parental comparison of, maybe you prefer your friend's parents, or you wish your parents were more like other parents. When she mentions that, yeah, Amy trains with her mom, like 6 hours a day, and Joyce just going, sounds like her mom doesn't have a lot to do. Oh, and I can so picture that situation. And I was lucky enough to have my parents very involved in my life. But I know part of that, especially my mom, came from, my mom was one of 5. She did not have individual time with her parents. So my mom made a concerted effort, because that's something she lacked, to be involved in, chaperoning field trips and that kind of thing. So I can absolutely see that reverse. Or I hear about many of my friends who are either artists or they're LGBT, and they're just not accepted for whatever reason by their parents. And so they have to find surrogate parents. And that's a goal of mine as a parent. I want to be that parent to my kids' friends who, if they are lacking at home, I can step in and do that kind of thing. Or just be a second mom. I have a bunch of second moms and my best friends' parents. And I love that, because sometimes that whole like hashtag parents just don't understand, or it's easier to hear from somebody when it's not your parent.
Yeah, for sure. Your parents I kind of adopted your parents in high school. They were the cool parents. They gave me advice. They let me hang out at your place all the time, and
they do. I've been so very lucky. They have tried so many times over my life to embarrass me, and they don't do a good job of it, because what I constitute as embarrassment is like how my friends feel about it. So if my mom could dance on a table, and as long as everybody else was like, woo, yeah, Julie, I'd be like, all right.
But she'd crush it.
She would. I know for a fact if my mom danced on a table, y'all would be stoked.
Julie, you're amazing.
So we've talked about maybe having like our favorite quote of the episode or top favorite quote. So I think we're going to have 2 categories of like our favorite quotes, and then maybe the episode's top Cordelia quote, because that's just, she always has these amazing ones. And I think the top Cordelia quote for this episode is, we have to achieve our dreams, Amy. Otherwise we wither and die.
Cordelia. I love this scene and the one right before it. First of all, I love for once seeing Cordelia want somebody else's approval. That's just amazing to me. I love when Amy trips over her and Cordelia is like, "You saw that,
You
right?
saw that, right?
Right? You saw that, right?"
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And this was another question I have for you, Allie.
Okay.
I don't think it ever. I imagine nobody threatened physical harm, but that scene in the locker room where Cordelia is like, "If you mess this up for me," did it get that tense in the cheerleading world? It did not get that tense in the high school theater world, which is the only world I know.
No, not in the theater world. I don't. I didn't really stay long enough in the cheer world to speak to our specific school. I also wasn't one of the cool kids. I didn't get invited to like the sleepovers and stuff with the other cheerleaders. So I guess I wasn't ever really enough of a threat to anybody. I'm sure it does.
If you want to call out them by name, I'm sure our listeners are willing to dox them. The people who thought you weren't cool enough.
Well, they never said so much in enough words. It's all that like plausible deniability. Like, well, I know that Allison got invited to the sleepover, but I didn't. Which was fine because there's a reason I chose marching band over cheerleading. You know, like I didn't have.
Yeah.
Allison was my only friend because she was smart and like actually intelligent and stuff. Like most of the cheerleaders on the team at the time were super stereotypical, and I was just like, yeah, I need to go where my people are.
Oh, high school.
That made the decision for me. I think I learned more from marching band than cheerleading ever could have taught me. And I think I don't know, I feel like I would have pulled some hair at some point.
So perhaps it got tense, but we're not sure. Interesting.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So moving on, poor Willow with all of Xander's talk about like, will you ask her out for me and all that stuff. It's just.
You're one of the guys.
Yeah. You're one of the guys. It's just like, oh, poor girl. Yeah.
Well, I am happy that gets dealt back to him later on in the episode. The same thing that he did to Willow.
For sure.
You're one of the, yeah.
Yeah. And another one of my favorite quotes, which a friend put on a shirt for me one time, "For I am Xander, king of Cretans. May all lesser Cretans bow before me."
I wrote that down too. That's so great.
Yeah. So this is something that you can speak to. It's not specifically to cheerleading, but the anxiety and excitement and the drama over the posting of a cast list, not a team list, but a cast list for theater. Oof.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but you would always, I don't know that I was ever surprised when I actually saw a cast list. I could kind of figure out, I don't know. So I was never surprised, but I always had a certain way that I wanted it to
go
play out. And then when it doesn't play out that way, just being, well, and then by the end of high school, they started posting it online, which was the smarter way to do it.
Which I so preferred that.
But that everybody's gathering and you have to be like positive and you have
to control your
like,
emotions and like not be too upset in front of everybody. Or wait to see it when you're by yourself. And say what you will about our high school theater teacher, I definitely understood 100% when she would take off the day.
Oh, yeah.
When she would post a cast list and then take off the day.
Yeah, don't stick around for that. No.
Yeah, nope. That I agreed with that move.
I wrote, I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead here. There's the first time we see the witchcraft actually happening. I commented, the witch has a sensible French tip and good for her. If you're going to be cursing people, you may as well have a nice manicure.
I definitely did not notice that, but that's so funny. No, the comment I had about her sorcery was, I can so imagine getting when we first see it, we don't know that it's not Amy. But I can imagine that upset and like horror if you found out that your parent was destroying your Barbies in such a way. Like those are precious to some people. It's high school, but there are some things you hold on to. Like, yeah, I'm not playing with them right now, but do I want you to destroy them? No. So I just like that awful feeling.
I did not consider that for one single second. That is so funny. You're right, though. Like, those are precious.
Right? Maybe those were collectibles. I don't know.
I was going to say, too, a lot of them you can't get anymore.
Right. Another great quote that comes up when they're, again, in the library. Why would someone target Cordelia and Willow's? Maybe because they met her. I just say that? Which I see you have on your quote list too.
Well, and I think that's my favorite quote of the episode.
It's a pretty solid one. We've all had that moment of like, we were just a little too honest and just slipped out.
I lost my thought. My dog is grumbling at me. Stop it. Sammy made me lose my thought. Keep going, Allie.
I love drunk Buffy. Macho. I want to be a macho man. I love that.
Yeah, I wrote that I know it's super bad and stuff, but when she's singing and when Xander and Willow walk in and she's like, my friends!
Yeah.
Buffy, drunky was really adorable.
It is. It's adorable. It's because, yeah, it's funny until it's serious and she's dying. But before that, it's very funny.
I also know it's super bad, but that scene where Cordelia is driving blind is also hilarious to me.
I did have a, like, I don't know, continuity, I guess, story kind of question of like, he said, the teacher says she's flunked driver's ed twice already. She's a sophomore. How has she already flunked twice?
That's impressive, really.
How early do they let you take your driver's your permit test in Sunnydale? I don't know.
I don't know if you can. I don't know what your learning to drive experience was like. Mine was not cute. I can relate to the feeling where you're behind the wheel and the person next to you goes brake.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Of course, mine was like I am braking. I am. Honestly, the best thing my parents ever did was when they paid for me to have extra hours with the instructor so I could get my hours. And that was lovely.
Yeah. Wow. I did not log any of my hours. I knew that I had gotten them because I was crossing county lines to go to school every day. So I for sure got to 60 hours pretty quick, but for sure did not. I hope the DMV isn't listening. I hope they don't come and take my license.
I really don't think you're what they're worried about.
Okay, good.
And you're definitely not. You're definitely not the first or only person to make up and write in hours.
Thanks for being my safe space, Allie.
You are so very welcome.
Did you have to dissect anything in high school in the way that our Sunnydale students were dissecting a frog?
Yes. I guess it was senior year, I took anatomy. And we dissected a cow eye, a fetal pig.
Oh, no.
Rat.
No.
Yeah,
Nope.
I think we did rat. The cow's eye was really cool because it turns out the back of it kind of looks like a seashell. It's this very shiny, very pretty. Like you could make jewelry out of it and just like never tell anybody it's a cow eye. I thought it was super cool. I found dissecting very cool. I know not everybody's into it. And obviously like, it didn't smell good, but I thought it was very interesting.
I would have been horrified if you put a frog in front of me and told me to. I don't think I could do it. Honestly, I truly don't.
Yeah, there were some people who. Well, I think most people because it was a class we chose to take.
Yeah, you opted into it. Yeah,
or not all of us did. Some of us, I think it was maybe I don't know people who were planning to be pre-med in college and stuff like that, and so they needed it. But for a bunch of us, it was just like the science we chose to take. So we knew that we would be dissecting. So we went in with that expectation.
Yikes. There's a quote here that I relate to. I think it's at the same time as the King of Cretans, I am the less whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Xander says, I got to stop taking Polaroids of her outside of her bedroom window. And I wrote, this is relatable because I do the same thing to Allie.
Yes, you do. I will never forget. I don't even know when it was. But in the middle of the night, I know you, because I talk about it, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. In the middle of the night, you texted me, you look beautiful while you sleep. And I read it in that like half awake, half asleep thing. So I was in that moment, like, how does he know? How does he see me? I'm on the second floor. How is he seeing me? And then it seriously took what felt like a whole minute to process, like, Allie, he doesn't literally have to be seeing you to type those words.
That's one of my favorite moments from us.
Willow's face when Buffy calls Xander one of the girls. That just like kind of satisfied, like excited, like, haha, okay. All right.
Priceless.
Like not upset about that. I loved how quickly Buffy put it together when they're at Amy's house and they're meeting her quote unquote mom. And she's like, what are the students? What are you going to do? And it's Giles is still like, how could you not know what your daughter's doing? Blah, blah, blah. And Buffy very quickly goes, Amy, you're Amy, aren't you? She switched bodies. And I just loved that because it's just, she's not just strong, she's smart. And I think that goes a lot into her as a Slayer.
Yeah. I think she sees the brownies on the table and then makes the connection to how, and yeah, it is just.
From that one conversation where Willow said she and Amy used to have brownie pig out fests.
Yeah, get yourself a Slayer that's not only strong and a leader, but is also brilliant.
Well, I think that is part of what gets you chosen, because you do have to be quick on your feet and resourceful and all of that. So yeah, I have a note. Probably the only time Willow and Xander will go to a basketball game.
Oh, that's funny. I love during this sequence, this feels like really nice character development for Giles, kind of stepping into like a fatherly kind of thing. He gets when he lays her on the lab table, he takes his jacket off and makes her a pillow for it. It's just very sweet to me.
Absolutely. And even before leaving Amy's house, the way he picks her up because she's gotten so weak. Yeah, definitely the start of that father figure role. And speaking of parents, I love once the bodies are switched back and the mom's all pissed off. She says, I gave up my life so you could drag that worthless carcass around and call it living. It's like, oof.
I mean, that's a talented actress.
She was great. As
soon as she called Amy or Buffy, whoever she called a brat, I was like, you bitch, I'm so excited for you to get sent into that statue. I can't stand you.
Yes, I do. Like, definitely from a shop talk perspective, when an actor has to play multiple roles, like, you know, pretending I am my teenage daughter in my body, that kind of thing is always so very impressive, and hats off to her. I should have looked up her name, but all of you can do that.
So I have a question.
Okay.
We learn that Amy and her mom switched bodies months ago. This is not a new thing. Amy has been like
It's probably how she lost all the weight.
But then why is she such a klutz in the beginning and knocks over Cordelia?
Oh, okay. So I do have an answer for that, because when she's upset after the klutz stuff and she's talking to Buffy. She said, but I can't get my body to move like hers. I think maybe there's some limitation of it not being her body.
Interesting. I think you're right. I think you're totally right. I was
There's
just
something
wondering
about like her coordination in that body. She just can't get it to work right.
Well, and I think that helps back up the idea that not only do your kids have different interests than you do, so you can't expect them to be into the same things you are, but also just literally their bodies might be different.
Right, their like actual abilities.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I have property damage when they're fighting in the lab, and a whole bunch of like glasses get broken. I'm just like, that poor school. This is a small town. I guarantee they don't have a huge science budget. These are the things that I think of when I watch television.
I hope they have a good insurance broker, at least.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Probably not. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Also a weird thing. Giles says, I hope it worked. This is my first casting. Lies.
You filthy fucking liar. You're a liar.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's one of those reality things of like, maybe when they wrote this episode, they didn't quite have fleshed out his entire backstory. But we will learn he has dabbled in witchcraft and sorcery and that kind of stuff. He has definitely cast spells. Maybe he means it's the first time he's casting this spell. Certainly not his first time, but casting a spell.
Maybe he means too, it's the, back to he's really starting to care for Buffy. Maybe this feels like higher stakes because he really loves, he cares for his Slayer. Who knows?
Who knows?
I picked up, a little continuity thing too. Opening sequence alert. There's when it gets reflected back at her and she's like screaming because the spell is hitting her. That's in the opening opening sequence.
Yes,
we
it
noted when that happened
is.
before.
Yes, there's a bunch of that in the bunch of this episode in the opening sequence because you see the cauldron being stirred, you see the
And the
black cat drinking,
cheerleading.
and the
Oh, yeah,
cheerleading, the
yeah.
black cat jumping out of the trunk.
I forgot about the black cat. That's true too. I hope that cat's okay. I hope he went to live with Amy and her dad.
I think the cat's probably fine. The cats are usually fine.
I'm
So
gonna
we
look
come
it
to
up.
we come to that moment where we're revisiting Joyce and Buffy, and she said, and I think it's so big of her, and this is where she does get an A+ in parenting, where she comes in and she's, I've been thinking about it, and I just don't get it. I think there are and she says something along the lines of, I think there are some things that, I can't understand about being a 16-year-old because I'm not a 16-year-old. And I think that's a huge thing. Yep. And I see you have it written in the quotes because it's just, that is such a big thing about parenting that I think maybe our generation is going to be better at than previous generations, admitting your imperfections because you're going to make mistakes. Your parents made mistakes, goodness knows. So I think the biggest thing is not making mistakes because that's unavoidable. It's about how you react afterwards and admitting that, yeah, I'm sorry for what I said because I fucked up. And so that's huge of Joyce to do that.
Yeah, I really like that too. I was not happy with her when it all went down. But then yeah, circling back and I feel like it's just great modeling about how parents will make mistakes and how they can move through those mistakes and continue to engage with their kids even when they're in very different places. I really liked that.
Yeah, and that is where I do truly love Joyce. Even when I don't love everything she says or everything she does, she is 100% trying her hardest, and everything is coming from the best possible place.
Mm-hmm. She sure does.
That's the most you can
love
hope
her
for.
one and only daughter, the only daughter she's ever gonna have.
Yep, ever. And then the last note I have for this episode is, I'm thinking of getting fat. LO, aren't we all, Amy?
Yeah.
Aren't we all? Like, what if I just let go?
And then I think Buffy says something back in support of that.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, I think that's it for the spring. Or
yeah,
something.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that looks it for the spring.
Good thinking, really. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Allie, you're right. This is a great episode. It
Right?
really is.
So many great moments with all of the characters. Really seeing Xander stepping out and his big crush on Buffy. And it is interesting, a lot of his comments of like, oh, I should just be a man. I should just ask her out. And that doesn't really pay off because he does continue to have this crush on Buffy. And that definitely factors into his opinions of Angel later on. I think that clouds a lot of his judgment. But he never does, or maybe it's later, but I feel like he doesn't have a moment where he does really come out, lay it on the table. Will you go on a date with me?
Mm-hmm.
Which again is totally accurate to a high schooler. I get it, but that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't love how how it all. I'm looking forward to thinking through that episode with you through the episodes to come where he's like continuing to wrestle with this crush. Yeah, definite high school boy, isn't he? Xander, but we love you for it.
I mean, I feel like I was very much the same. I have always been romantically inclined, so I've always had crushes and stuff. And junior year, I made moves, but again, I still never directly asked this person out, but I invited them over to bake for a friend's birthday, and I invited them over to watch movies. And I'll never forget when I was kind of, I guess, venting or whatever to my parents and saying, I feel like the ball's in his court. Like, I've made it very clear that, like, I want to spend time with him and all of that. And my dad just said to me, well, have you literally told him I like you or asked him out? And I was like, well, no. And that's why my dad was like, well, then you haven't done everything, or you haven't been as clear as possible.
Bruce Press.
I know. Although I did find out years later, he did know that I had a crush on him. So I was like, okay, cool. So my advancements weren't like totally unnoticed. Now, I mean, it's a good thing. We're close friends now. And had we tried to date, or if I had tried to ask him out, he would have said no. Or if he had said yes, it would have been terrible, would have ruined our budding friendship. And it would have just been a bad idea. It never would have worked out. But at the time, junior year Allie thought it would have been a match made in heaven.
I'm glad things worked out the way they did. I regret that I led you on, Allie.
Yes, I was.
You've been talking about me, right?
Yes, this whole time. Yep.
Great. I thought so.
Yep.
What do you think? I struggled coming up with the moral of the story for this one. So I'll share what I came up with, and then you can offer your thoughts as well. The moral of the story that I see is that you are your own person. Some people are going to want you to be different, and you can't be different. You can only be you, and that's awesome. That's great.
I mostly agree with that. I would refine that a little to say specifically your parents. Your parents will have expectations of you, and that's just a fact of life. And also, it's more of a theme than a moral of the story of just parents. Am I right? I feel like that's a huge thing. I feel like a lot of parental relationships come to a head in high school because you're starting to become a person with your own thoughts and feelings, and you're gaining independence. Some people are driving now and those kinds of things, and you're starting to pull apart from being totally under your parents' wing. So I feel like that's where a lot of clashes with parents happen. And it's where you're starting to, figure out, what do you want to do with your life? What do my parents want me to do? What do they want me to major in college? What clubs do they think I should be in? All of those things. We came from a very academically inclined high school, so there was definitely a lot of pressure in that arena of which colleges to apply for, how many colleges, how many APs are you taking? Are you going to take the AP test? All of that. So much parental pressure, for better or worse. I think there are definitely parents out there who don't put enough pressure, who aren't involved enough, but it can definitely swing in both directions.
And something I have in the back of my mind too, as I'm thinking about the rest of Amy's trajectory, and there's ups and downs, but she's a badass. She's what she decides that she wants to do. And I don't want to spoil too much for our listeners who may not yet, but she's damn good at it. She doesn't always use her powers for good.
Yeah,
but she's
without a doubt
strong at what she does. So
yeah, without a doubt powerful. And it is her side storyline is definitely interesting and definitely plays into this larger idea of Buffy being a metaphor and how much of this situation with her mom affected those things down the line. What is this instability in her youth with her parents fighting and then ending up with her mom and then, ending up with her dad, who her dad seems lovely, but that's still instability. And some of that is enough to just shake a person.
Totally.
And even just shake your views of your parents. Like, well, my mom was a literal witch, so I don't know if I just trust parents in general anymore.
Brilliant. What have we not discussed that you would like to about this episode, Allie?
We got everything. We went through all my notes.
We went through all of mine too. How about that? I don't love the bracelet from Xander.
Yeah.
That's a little weird, right?
It was weird, but I think it's supposed to be weird.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point.
And probably high school boy new to crushes, doesn't know what you're
supposed to do. And it is a very sweet gesture. And there's a concept that was brought up in How I Met Your Mother, where it's all the romanticness of a gesture is all in the eye of the beholder. Because if Buffy had been secretly crushing on him, she would have been in love with that bracelet. She would be sleeping with it on. She would never take it off. So
that's a great point. Yeah.
Which is very interesting. Now, luckily she was spared that because it was stolen to curse her. But if Willow had gotten that bracelet, she would have loved it. It would not have been seen as weird at all. She would have seen it as super sweet and super romantic and as an excellent gesture.
To be fair, relatedly, if I'm annoyed by somebody or if I don't like somebody, anything they do, I will find offensive.
Yeah, it could be totally a reasonable thing.
Yeah.
But no, everything that they do is awful.
Interesting. Life lessons both from Buffy and from what?
How I Met Your Mother.
Lovely. Well, Allie.
Yes.
I think that about does it for this episode. I would love to thank everybody so much for joining us, and I hope you will join us again for our next episode, where we will discuss season 1, episode 4, Teacher's Pet.
Yes, I'm very excited for the conversations we're going to have that one. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. If you are just too excited to wait until our next episode to chat, send us an email at tabularosabpod@gmail.com. You can also say hello to us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at tabularosabpod. I love the consistency of all of those handles. Thank you very much, Nick. And if you would like more from me, Allie Press, you can find me at alliepress.net, at daughterpick on Instagram and Twitter, DAUGHTERPICK, and at future black cat, spelled like how you think, on TikTok.
And I'm not nearly interesting enough for you to be interested in following me on Twitter. So you should instead go to Allie's Buy Me a Coffee website, which is what?
Aw, thank you. buymeacoffee.com/AlliePress.
Glorious. And all of those social media handles are in the description, our friends. So until next time, all of you
make
some proud choices. Bye.
Bye.
Tabula Rasa, bitches, is hosted by Allie Press and Nick Mercer, with music by Inflaton Cult, artwork by Charlotte Fleming Design, and consultation by Evo Terra.